Welcome everybody to the third session at TNG Big Techday 21, which is our virtual remote conference this year. The next session is held by Hima Mandali and Dennis Winter of Solarisbank. A very warm welcome to both of you. Thanks for joining us today. Solarisbank is a fintech company, one of the leading players in the new field of banking platforms as a service. And Hima Mandali is currently working as the CTO of Solarisbank. He has more than 10 years of experience leading teams at Capital One, which is one of the biggest banks in America. He also previously worked at a nonprofit organization working on insurance for educators and a Nokia. I hope that information is correct. Correct me if not. So he has plenty of experience leading tech teams. And Dennis Winter is currently the Vice President of Technical Operations at Solarisbank. He's more than 15 years of experience in software development. And his responsibility at Solarisbank is the platform and infrastructure development. So again, thanks to both of you for joining us. I'm very much looking forward to your talk. Some brief information about questions. The talk is held remotely and we will collect questions through the Slack channel that is linked on the Big Tech Day homepage. We'll collect all the questions until the end of the talk, so feel free to raise questions whenever you have them and we'll address them at the end. If anything else is unclear, feel also free to contact us on Slack. And with that, I'll hand over to Dennis and Hima. Thanks again and enjoy the talk, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Jonathan. So actually, you already nuked our first 4 slides because we had our introduction as well prepared. So maybe just like Hima, do you want to say a couple of sentences to yourself?
Jonathan put it better than I do. So thank you for having us here. Really glad we could not travel because of a late night supervisory board meeting yesterday. So we want to at least connect virtually. So thank you for having us. As Jonathan said, Hima Mandali, I'm in Berlin right now. I relocated from US just to work for Solarisbank. So it's been 2.5 years I joined Solarisbank. And before that, I worked for Capital One for more than a decade. Dennis, over to you.
Thanks, Hima, and thanks, Jonathan, for the introduction as well. So I'm Dennis. I'm leading technical operations at Solaris. I joined the company in 2016 as one of the first engineers here. We were less than 10 people in tech when I joined. And when we are talking today about banking as a service at lightning speed, we want to talk about not in particular our systems were, of course, like nearly lightning speed, but it is more about the journey that we went through as a company. I want to start with the latest news about Solarisbank. So just in case that you haven't heard about us, we will tell you a little bit about what we are doing. Just recently, we closed our Series D round, raising 190 million euros during summer. This bumped us into the unicorn club, so we are really happy about this. In the scope of this Series D round, we also acquired one of our competitors in the UK called Contis, which gives us now with branching into other European countries and passporting in even more Central European countries, also foothold in the UK. The company was founded in 2015-ish, 16, and in the meantime, we've grown to more than 650 employees. Solarisbank, or what Solarisbank is doing in a nutshell. We consider ourselves as a tech company with a banking license, which means there is no bank branch where people can go to and open an account. Even though that already happened once or twice, that people showed up in our offices in Berlin and wanted to open a bank account. One elderly couple once showed up because he was a plasma physicist and he liked Solarisbank and he just wanted to have a bank account. And then they were standing in our entrance area, and we had to tell them we can't do anything for you, because what we offer are APIs. We follow a business-to-business model, which means we enable other businesses to embed financial functionalities into their product offerings.
Dennis, sorry to interrupt. Do you mind going into presentation mode, please? There was a comment in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries. I rarely do this. It is there, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. As I mentioned, more than 650 employees in the meantime, more than 60 nationalities, mainly in Berlin. But in the meantime, as I mentioned, we opened local branches. We have people working in the meantime also in a tech hub in Ukraine for us. We are looking into more countries to expand our business there, and we are backed by very strong investors in the meantime, like for example, Samsung, BBVA is a well-known bank and investor, SBI Group from Japan, Visa, and Global Brains, which is an investment VC capital company from Sony. What our products basically look like. If you have a look at the orange box, this is what Solarisbank is offering to the market. It means that we have a KYC product, so identifying people and businesses. Digital banking, everything that has to do with transfer of money through bank accounts, card payments, of course, payments and lending. And in 2018, we already started going into the crypto field. We founded our blockchain factory back then as a business unit. And in the meantime, we have turned this into Solaris Digital Assets subsidiary. Our main partners, or the group, or the type of partners that we have, are oftentimes banks in the meantime. So initially we were targeting more other fintechs, but as it turned out, we also saw that banks definitely have quite some use cases in order to integrate with our APIs. We have corporates, bigger and smaller. We have big tech companies, for example, Samsung. We will look a little bit later into the specific use case that we enable Samsung with, and other fintechs as we started out initially, like other companies that were founded in the same aquarium like we were in the fintech, in the FinLeap space, which is our mothership, so to say, like Penta or Contest. So Solarisbank has a very strong tech department. So roughly 45% of the company is tech, which makes up the biggest function that we have internally, because of the Berlin as like our location for the headquarter, and the very diverse environment that we found here. We had a lot of people also like moving to Berlin for Solarisbank from all around the world. So we have a very diverse team in general, and we have a very interesting mix in cultures, as you can imagine. So people coming from the finance world with very traditional and oftentimes big companies where they were coined and where they were branded as a person. They came into more a startup environment where a lot of people, young engineers coming from the whole startup environment. This interesting mix in the end is what makes Solarisbank unique and working at Solarisbank unique, and also what gives a lot of variety in the topics that you have to deal with on a daily basis. So what is Solarisbank in particular doing? As you can perceive, or as everyone could perceive over the last couple of years, there were more and more functionalities showing up in our devices, in our digital devices, that had to do with financial services. You can see that basically the market share in this specific field gets bigger for new fintech players and payment providers. Banks in general are also like the biggest chunk in there, but they get a competition in there, and also need to change basically the way how they do things, because the reason why Solarisbank initially was founded was because fintechs that Finley wanted to found that it was complicated to interact with the more I would say legacy systems that were oftentimes offered by traditional banks. So the idea of founding a company that thinks and acts like a startup and like a modern tech company that offers these services was something that was some kind of like a no-brainer to the founding fathers of Solaris. If you look at, as I mentioned, at what companies are doing that we interact with on a more or less daily basis, Apple, Uber, and Google initially had nothing to do with financial services. But sooner or later, they ended up at a place where obviously financial services became very interesting as an additional functionality for their respective products. It basically unlocks additional revenues for them. Customers, of course, if like once you have a certain convenience, or if you get used to a certain convenience, you don't want to get like rid of it anymore. Usually people stick to this. And of course, you're creating more specific data on the behavior of people and can act on this then as well. You can leverage it. One case study that we brought today for you, one of two, is Vivid Money. You might have heard of Vivid Money. They just launched, I think it was it last year, Hima, or was it the year before, in Berlin. And Vivid, in the meantime, is perceived as one of the main competitors to N26. So what Vivid does is they are incredibly customer-centric. So they really try to understand what the things are that people want to do with their banking app, other than just paying their invoices or paying at the point of sale. They came up with pockets in the meantime, everything based upon our API. Direct peer-to-peer payments. So if you're going out for lunch with a friend, your friend can directly wire you the money from their Vivid account to your Vivid account in no time, basically. And they have, and they have stock rewards and different cashback functionalities in there. Everything is built on basis of the Solarisbank APIs, but Vivid themselves put these customer experience and these additional functionalities on top, where they said, this is exactly what we perceive if we talk with our customers, what they want to have. Another case study is Samsung Pay. What we did there was enabling Samsung to directly connect a German bank account with a virtual Samsung Pay card. It's a similar solution like Apple Pay. The difference is that Apple, or if in order to use Apple Pay, your bank needs to have a partnership with Apple. In our case, this is completely circumvented in a sense of that you will get a full-fledged German bank account connected to your Samsung Pay card, which basically means you're just connecting your own personal bank account to your Samsung Pay bank account as a reference account, and you can directly start paying at every point of sale with your Samsung Pay virtual card per NFC. The speciality in there, and this is where the power of Solarisbank's product portfolio comes in, the way how you combine certain endpoints, the way how you combine certain products makes up new products, of course. So what we introduced with Samsung Pay was a product called Split Pay. Split Pay means you could buy your TV set at a point of sale for $700 and just with NFC. And after a couple of days, you might want to turn this into a loan because you were just like, yeah, maybe it's a little bit too much and I want to pay it off over the next 6 months. And you can do it just by like 1 or 2 clicks of a button, presses of a button. How is it called at a mobile phone? You know what I mean. You can just turn it into a loan. And this is special and new to the market. It hasn't been seen before. And it's just another combination of the products that we have. So the product range that we offer is pretty broad and can be combined to create new use cases. Now, a little bit of how we initially started out and how we put everything together. Bootstrapping a fintech bank. When I joined Solaris in 2016, I think I mentioned it already, we were less than 10 engineers. The people who were there followed a pretty lean approach. So they initially started out with just like what was there, a very monolithic approach, and said we just build the first product as good as we can and as much as we think it makes value. So sales back then was basically defining how the products look like. We didn't really know, we didn't have a clear plan on what exactly our first product would be. So overselling was how product and engineering basically learned on what was needed from the market. What was very unique back then was that our founding members, or the first management board that we had, were very motivational. So in our all hands meetings initially, they repeated week after week after week that this is a company of entrepreneurs. It is not, some people who are doing this and then we are hiring employees and the employees just like walk after us. It is everyone in this company they wanted everyone to understand that they are exactly where they're supposed to be. And everyone is of value and everyone is important in order to succeed. So the market shaped basically what we've been working on. And back then we really worked a lot. As I mentioned, we started out with a monolith. It was fully Dockerized already, but it was one monolith. We initially already knew that we want to break it apart as soon as possible and did that starting roughly from July 16, August 16. At the same time, we changed the infrastructure for actual scalability, because initially it was for the techies among you, there was a render installation. It was like a UI where you could click that you want to roll out a new version of the monolith. And there was no other way to do it. We didn't have like an actual automation back then. Putting a lot of automation in there and making sure that we segregate the services directly from data so that we have stateless services and so on was something that we immediately started working on shortly after I joined. Because of compliance reasons back then, we were also operating in an on-prem environment. So on Linux servers, and with a very manual processes initially, where it was clear that we had to get rid of them as quickly as possible. I wrote here where the business could be bold, tech had to be lean. That was because we saw a lot of traction from the market. As I mentioned, sales was like constantly overselling. And we really had to pick our battles. We really had to understand what are the things that we can implement as new features and what are the things that we need to do in order to get us in general into a better, more scalable situation. So that was basically what we built our initial architecture upon. Everything was based on Linux. Everything was based on open source software. We relied heavily on HashiCorp tools, on Prometheus, of course. And for automation, we picked Concourse and Ansible. Concourse is a tool from Pivotal. CI/CD system, which was built initially also already for the cloud, so for horizontal scalability. So in case that you haven't heard about it, I can only recommend look into it, because it really allows you to establish a lot of approval and compliance processes around it, because everything can be expressed in code and it's easy readable. Takes a bit, but it works. The infrastructure, or the setup, the overall setup that we came up with back then looked like this. So these are both screenshots from our initial presentations, from the pitch decks that we had for our A and B round, if I'm not mistaken. And except for some of the tools like Prometheus and Greylock and Sentry that changed in the meantime, but overall the concept didn't change too much. So if you look to the left, you can see the dev, the developer, the interaction that the developer has with production, with all the changes that are rolled out, only goes through GitHub Enterprise. So all the different steps that are necessary to automatically test your changes, to get the technical approvals and to get the functional approvals from the product owners before a certain feature gets rolled out, is triggered through webhooks around GitHub Enterprise and the systems that follow it. So this helped us, and the Dockerization in particular, helped us to ensure the integrity of all the changes that we are rolling out, because we could always link to specific Git hashes, to specific hashes of the images, and of course then link it directly to the rollouts during our automations. Handing over to Hima.
Thanks, Dennis. So I'll take it from here. So, what you have seen was the initial years of Solarisbank. And when I joined, it was 2.5 years ago. And my first week at the job, I was in a meeting where I'm supposed to talk about Solarisbank tech and how we're going to shape up tech, like a pitch to Samsung. So the other competitors who are in the pitch with us was Wirecard and Klarna. So end of the day, Samsung liked what we told them we're going to build, and they trusted us, not only to build a product with us, but also became our investors along this process. So want to also share what's under the hood, what we developed in the 2 years, what are the tech stacks that we use, and other topics. So banking as a service, as you could see, there are many players out there, and we are in a position to be the market leader where we enable banking as a service for anybody who want to offer financial services with our 450 API endpoints. So we only use APIs. So these are the couple of focus areas we worked on in the past couple of years. I'm really proud to tell that when I started, Dennis was that, one of the 10 developers that we had in the team. And, I had people, super passionate developers like Dennis himself, part of the growth for the Solaris. We had 60 or 70 developers when I joined, and right now we have almost 300 developers this year. It all happened in 2 years, and also in COVID, we launched Samsung Pay as if COVID didn't exist, while everybody of us working remotely. So we opened up a tech hub in Ukraine, and with Conti's acquisition, we inherited another tech hub in India. We are opening up a second location in India in a month or so. So everything is remote, so it made our life easy. One other topic we worked on is we migrated all our 450 endpoints fully to AWS. So we are fully on cloud. We restructured tech organization to be a little bit efficient, like the teams, like concepts like SRE. We do have a dedicated team to focus on the quality of the endpoints that we push it to production, like error budgeting and topics like, making sure we have good SLIs in place. While in this process, we realized our core banking provider was not scaling up as fast as we were. So we started off with a small project, which ended up rewriting our entire core banking system by ourselves. I think June this year is when we fully migrated and decommissioned our old provider. So we run with our own core banking system as of today, which if you see any bank out there, they don't really have that in-house. Well, we also realized that Ruby and Elixir and maybe Python or something like that, what we had initially was not enough to build the APIs super fast and fast to market. So we added 5 different programming languages, including Java and Kotlin last years. And also to make it super easy, faster onboarding for critical services like KYC, identity services, we pushed a few SDKs as well. So in that way, the partner or whoever the provider that want to integrate with Solaris, they're going to be integrating it super fast. Data, as everybody, as you know, that we are a bank. End of the day, we have lots of data where partners like we have BP using our KYC services. We do have Coinbase using our few of the endpoints. So we do have a huge customer base. End of the day, data is like a goal for us. So we started investing on a 2.0 data platform. So we are integrating with Snowflake and a few other tools to enable machine learning and smart decisioning systems, so that all the partners can see insights of their end customers and then offer or tweak their products accordingly. We also invested super heavily in automation. So as you have seen, 45% of the company's tech. If you look at any bank in Germany, most of the, there were manual processes internally for any banking transactions, and we completely cut it out. We had engineers instead of process flows writing code, and that really helped us to become a little bit more efficient than other providers or players. So next slide, please, Dennis. So these are the topics that we tackled early on. And as I said, this is our tech stack as of today. I could say it's 100% automated and fully on cloud. Java, Kotlin, Swift came with SDKs. So we added those and all the topics that you see. We have the core banking system was written fully on Go. Yeah, everything is in Dockerized. So next, please. And also fully on AWS, and also AWS kind of told us, and again they made a press release on our behalf that we are the first bank to fully migrate to cloud. It just happened that we thought having even 5% of infrastructure on an on-prem databases doesn't make sense. So with that, we also qualified to become AWS Advanced Technology Partner. Our productivity tooling, we recently started migrating to GCP. So we have plans to use GCP as the secondary cloud provider for critical applications. So we operate in multi-cloud so that we are not stuck with one provider long-term. What we also enabled along these 2 years was the strong ownership the teams own end-to-end, spinning up the infrastructure, owning up their APIs, and the errors comes out of it. We do have really good escalation policies with the tooling that we have and the observability alerts that teams get. So we made it like you build it, you own it concept across all the product platforms and the teams. Next, please. All right, so this is also, as you have seen the tech stack, this is what's under the hood for the end-to-end infrastructure. We are fully Linux-based, containerized in a distributed systems, automated with tons of ICE in all our systems and processes, alerting us 24/7. However, there's lots of false positives, which we are working on to combine them to become more efficient, as you could tell. But this is what we have as of today. All right, that's pretty much it, and I want to end and me and Dennis will be open for questions. And before I say, no matter if you're a developer or not, if you have any interest to code is what we look for when we hire. So if you know anybody, we are hiring in all the locations in Europe plus India, Ukraine. So if you have a friend or if you have somebody that please refer us. We would really appreciate it. So that's pretty much about it. We are open for questions.
So thanks a lot again. That was a very interesting presentation. We already have a few questions from Slack, which I'll read out in a minute. In the meantime, for all the attendees, feel free to add more questions if you have some. First question from Konstantin. Can you elaborate on security and your cybersecurity team? How do you secure your servers, APIs, and what's your recommendation regarding external audits? And what's the daily business for your cybersecurity team?
Dennis, you want to take it? Or
so cybersecurity and infrastructure is very closely related, right? You cannot bolt security on top of your systems. You need to apply principles that keep you safe. What we are currently doing is that we are putting a lot of emphasis into, or we enable our cybersecurity team more as we are speaking, and also as the company is growing. So it's one of the core investments that we are doing. What they do on a daily basis is, well, I don't know if you're familiar with the 3 lines of defense, but if you connect it to the audit question, you might be. So the first line is it comes from a risk approach. The first line of defense from a risk approach is the teams who implement things. That's our cybersecurity team is a part of the first line, which means they implement services, they implement systems, they build a security enclave where they gather all the information that is emitted throughout all our systems, and where it can be analyzed and alerted on. On the second line of defense, that's the risk teams and the teams that control basically the functions on the first line. This is where we have an information security team. So that is a team that follows the same principles, but they are the controllers of the implementations. And on the third line, you usually have the audit. So if you're asking in particular for what's happening on the first line, we have a very strong communication in between our tech department, cybersecurity being one of the main stakeholders and one of the main drivers of initiatives that enable the product teams and the other infrastructure teams to do things better than they've been doing it before. So for example, we introduced some time ago Vault. If you know Vault, that's a tool that helps you manage your secrets from HashiCorp. The initial POC was implemented by the cybersecurity team, and they gave their advice in how this should be integrated into our current infrastructure, or in the back then current infrastructure. So they contribute actively to the overall architecture and setup of our cloud architecture. I don't really understand what your question was in regards to the external audit.
Yeah, and also to add, before we get to the question again, we do have a DevSecOps pipeline. So we do have tons of scanners in each and every step of the development process, starting with the developer laptop, the dev environment. So we have lots of alerting, we have break the build. If there are vulnerabilities found super early, in the even create a build, push it to the next level. So that's the security left mindset we have on the way how we develop API. So probably that helps us to not to have a bigger surprises to expose any vulnerabilities externally. Hope that answers the question.
I think so. There's a thank you. I think so. There's a thank you on that. So I'll read the next question then, which is about the multi-cloud setup. So you already went into this after the question was posted. Then you have our own AWS and Google Cloud, but I'll still read it and maybe you'll pick out the details that are still uncovered. So this seems contrary to their approach to start with a monolith and break it up apart later once you need that. Moreover, you cannot rely on managed services by the cloud providers anymore and must build your own tools or rely on open source. Was there a business need, for example, to not being locked into a single cloud provider?
Yes, obviously, when you are operating in a vendor neutral environment where we don't offer any end customer financial services, so we have partners that use them. For example, the neobanks, we have like 3 or 4 neobanks. One is Tomorrow Bank, and there is another Penta Bank, and there is Vivid Money, as you have seen. So we want to be super neutral to all the providers that we have there. However, not every partner want to use AWS services. So, because some of them see AWS is competing in their core markets or something like that. So we want to be a little bit of vendor agnostic. Having 2 cloud providers also help. And also, if you see as much as auto scaling is enabled in different AZs and DZs, it's always better to have your data backed up in another cloud storage to be on the safe side. So that's one of the ideas. And also, from my past experience with Capital One, it's always good to have another second cloud provider, so that you can always have a second option if things don't go well with the provider. I mean, AWS can think of changing their business model or hiking the prices, so y'all can always think of optimizing your infrastructure whenever you want it. So build versus buy is what we do. I also have seen a question on being logged into the cloud providers, manage our tools of our own. Yeah, that's why we rely on the open source tooling as much as we can. And if we know there are some services where you can find in almost all the cloud providers, we will go with them. So we do take a second look whenever we want to use a service, whether it's fully encrypted, number 1, and number 2, whether it's available in other cloud providers. Is it cheaper to build versus buy, and fast to market as our parameters? Okay. Robert, hey, nice to see you here. Yeah, thanks for the message. Thanks for the congrats. How much did the COVID remote work speed up your company growth to 250 devs? It actually helped us because it made super easy to onboard folks, and it was all virtual happy hours, virtual onboarding sessions. Good that the shipping companies worked to ship the laptops in every location that we wanted. Being remote, so we also declared we are the remote first company, where we give preference people to work remotely if they wanted forever. So that also helped us recruit more tech developers. So yeah, hope that answered your question.
And maybe to add to this, we just were in the same situation like all the other companies. We had to make sure that our technical setup can actually really carry a fully remote environment. So all the companies were forced into a remote first situation when everyone was working from home. So as soon as you are there is no reason that you're getting back from it. So it was just opened up more opportunities for people to work together with Solaris, because we were technically also really able to allow a good experience for meetings and such.
There was an audit question, Dennis. How often do you ask for external audits? How many different companies, and is focus purely technical?
I think at the end of last year, we had 5 audits in parallel. And so and now I'm not a banker, but what I learned about audits in the meantime is that we are obliged to have one audit from the internal revision and one from the external per year. And they pick their individual focus areas. And that's just the usual suspects. And then there might be other stakeholders that are coming in who want to do an audit. be it the deposit protection fund or whatever. I mean, there are many stakeholders out there in the financial market who want to see every once in a while that you are doing things well. So there are some parts that we need to do from a regulatory perspective, like the 2 audits that I mentioned. And then there are other ones that just show up here and there, depending also sometimes when we deploy new services that need to be audited, where we get companies in that basically prove that what we did follows our own principles and adheres to the official regulations and requirements from the regulators.
Thanks for following up on that. We have a question from Aaron, who's actually on the panel here, so I'll ask him to unmute.
Yeah, I can ask myself. So thanks first for the talk. It was very nice and interesting. So I did not know that much about Solarisbank before. And I have a technical question now that goes a bit more to the software development section. So when you are saying you are using microservices, then the obvious question for me is banking and transactions are very important there, right? So I mean, transactions also from the point of view from a developer, so the money transaction, but that everything is transactional. So how do you handle that? Because eventual consistency is probably not good enough.
That's true. And that's the reason why, I mean, where it actually counts in the end is in the core banking system. And we started the core banking initiative early 2018 and had a team basically do research and development for roughly a year and a half to exactly fix this. So I think we have Solaris talks next week with the team that was building this, in particular talking about this specific topic. So I can send you a link, Aaron, if you want, and then you can get all the details how they actually fixed it.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, then the next question on Slack is from Mustafa. Is there a reason for starting your service as a monolith rather than a microservice? Is there a specific advantage for that?
Well, the advantage is that you don't have to, you need to manage microservices. A microservice means that you need to define the domain of the specific service, and you need to build up more surrounding processes, basically, to manage the rollout of the services themselves. If you start with a monolith, and you know that this is something that a POC would also usually never come with as a microservice architecture. It usually comes that you just start doing things quickly. And that was initially also the reason why the first engineers decided to go for a POC-like approach. Full transparency, I think we've been running on POCs for at least like a year. Like 2016 was like all the functionalities or products that we had live were POCs, best case. And at the same time, we invested to build up the teams who would stabilize what is there and start putting things into a shape that it's actually really scalable. It is just a question of speed. You will be quicker building a monolith than building a microservice architecture from the get-go.
And also when you have 10 developer team, that's what it's easy to build, right? So that was also one of the reasons when you have a lean team, building a monolith and maintaining it was easy during the initial days. Okay, you said you backed your data on your other cloud services other than AWS because they seem competitors to your customers. From my point of view, those new cloud providers are also competitors. How is this solving problem, not making it worse? All right, maybe let me clarify it a little bit deeper. We want to bank it up for the resiliency reasons. I know a few partners that we are talking, they don't want to have data in AWS services. They want their services to be hosted in another cloud provider. So we want to give them that option of, if you don't want to be in the AWS, you can also have, some of the services that are hosted in GCP that you could use. That we haven't done it fully yet. That's the plan that we have. But again, if there is a huge partner, we're talking about Fortune 10 partner, and they come with the deep pockets, and when they make a wish, I think switching to a secondary cloud provider for those limited services makes sense from a business perspective. So that's what I meant. I hope this answers the questions. Anything else, Jonathan?
No, thanks a lot already for answering this question. If there's no more questions from maybe the on-site venue, then I'd have one more question on your team structure, if you don't mind. So you said in one of your slides that your founders were very good at conveying the goals of the company to the teams, and you have experienced such a big growth. Can you share any best practices on how to scale this conveying the goals to the company? Like in my own day-to-day work, I work as a product owner, and a large part of my work is telling the team why what they are doing is important. How do you ensure that that still happens with the number of engineers that you have?
Well, we sync regularly, because with all this growth, also there is a speed and there are changes. We do have a bi-weekly broadcast where we openly speak about all the things that are happening, inside and outside the company. Plus, we do have values that we live by as a company together. So we define the values together, and then we started rolling them off. So everybody lives and breathes the values that we see. What's our purpose of having as a provider, or what are we there for? So that are the two core things that we do. And also last year it was fully remote. It was a bit different for us. So we switched into lots of virtual sessions, like all of you as well, keeping the team together. I think this year we are meeting face to face. We have a company party together where we met all of us. The way how we also onboarded and distributed the teams, we never had Ukraine teams standalone and the India team standalone. We have integrated teams where we have engineers from Berlin, Ukraine, and India working together on one single product, right? So they do have a product that they build it together, where they have to collaborate more frequently, and that really helps. And also there's lots of fireside chats, ask me anything sessions that we have, where we open up and share more transparently how things are.
Yeah, also for all the new joiners, or for everyone else, like I, for example, never went to an onboarding session because I'm just like furniture. I've been there all the time. And so all the new things that people came up with, all the new cool things, I was never part of it. So I'm catching up a little bit on this. So what we do is also, it doesn't come without an effort. What we also do is, one of our product VPs is explaining in like an hour-long session about the business case of Solaris and the products that we have, just to everyone who is interested in this. So we have learning sessions that happen frequently for all the new joiners and for everyone else who's interested in, who might not have seen it yet. So you need to invest quite a bit into making information available for the people who are there, and also like rubbing their nose in the fact that there are sessions and we actually want you to go there and to understand what's happening.
Thank you again for going so deep with all the questions here. I think that's not always the case, and very much appreciated by the audience, at least myself. A lot of interesting stuff. Since there were no more questions in Slack, I'd wrap up the session now. Before everybody heads off, at least on site, I have one more piece of information regarding lunch. Due to the COVID restrictions, there won't be a buffet style lunch like the previous years, but instead there's seated lunch in the different restaurants. And for everybody who joined this talk, the lunch will take place in the restaurant The Greenhouse, which is in the ground floor of the Westin Hotel. Hope you find that well, everyone. Thanks again, Dennis and Hima, for taking the time for this talk, and have a nice afternoon.
Yeah, thank you. Same to you all. Enjoy your day, and thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.